My wife tried to burn my life's work in the backyard fire pit. I wish that were a metaphor. Hello, everyone. I'm using a throwaway for obvious reasons. My name is Daniel. I'm 38 and my wife, Isabella, is 35. We've been married for 7 years, together for 10. I thought I knew her. I truly did. The catalyst for all of this was, indirectly, our cat, Smokey. Smokey was a magnificent, grumpy Maine Coon I'd had for 16 years. He predated Isabella by nearly a decade. He was my constant companion through 2 degrees for moves and the launch of my career. He was a creature of immense dignity and quiet affection, and while Isabella grew fond of him, his loyalty was always, unequivocally, to me. My passion, my sanctuary outside of my professional life as an architect, is writing. Not blogs or journals, but epic, meticulously researched historical fiction. My current project, a novel set in 15th century Morocco, was my magnum opus. It wasn't just a document. It was a world I had built over 5 years. It contained hundreds of thousands of words, but more than that, it held my research, digital copies of rare manuscripts, translations I'd commissioned, maps I'd drawn, character biographies, and family trees spanning generations. The manuscript itself was backed up in a cloud service, but the heart of the project, the living, breathing ecosystem of its creation, was on a single high-capacity external hard drive. This drive held all the raw materials, the notes scrawled during moments of inspiration, the alternate chapters, the image archives for settings, and the voice notes I recorded while walking. It was a 5-year journey, not just a destination. I am a quiet man. I feel things intensely, but I process them internally. My emotional landscape is one of deep, still waters, not turbulent, crashing waves. This is central to everything that happened. Smokey's decline was slow and insidious. It began with him sleeping more, then a diagnosed kidney condition, then a slow, steady loss of weight and vitality. The last 6 months were a cycle of specialized vet appointments, subcutaneous fluids I learned to administer at home, specific prescription foods, and a pervasive, quiet sorrow that settled over our home. I was the primary caretaker. I managed his medication schedule, kept a log of his food and water intake, and made a comfortable nest for him in every room so he could always be near us. Isabella was visibly distressed throughout this period. She would often cry after giving him his pills, her emotions right at the surface. I was gutted, watching my old friend fade, but my grief manifested as a fierce, protective focus on his comfort and dignity. About a month ago, the vet sat us down. Smokey was suffering. We both knew it. We made the impossible, merciful decision together. I scheduled the appointment for the next morning. Isabella was a wreck. She sobbed that entire evening. I spent Smokey's last night holding him, talking to him softly, reminding him of all our adventures. At the vet's office, it was peaceful and somber. Isabella cried openly, her body shaking. I held Smokey, stroking his fur, whisper my goodbyes as he slipped away. I felt a part of my soul tear loose and follow him out of the room. The silence he left behind was deafening. But I did not cry. I held myself together, arranged for his private cremation, and handled the practicalities. The car ride home was thick, with a tension I couldn't quite name. Isabella finally broke the silence. "How can you be so calm?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mix of grief and something else, accusation. "It's like you don't even care." "He's gone, Daniel. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" I tried to explain, my own voice low and strained, that my sorrow was a private, deep-running river, not a public storm. She shook her head, turned to look out the window, and said, "Sometimes I think you're made of stone." The following week was a study in isolation under the same roof. Isabella was distant, cold. She made comments about my robotic nature, my inability to feel. I told her I was grieving in my own way, that my focus on work and my novel was a coping mechanism, a way to channel the ache into something creative. I thought I was giving her space. I was wrong. The incident happened on a Thursday evening. I came home from a long day at the firm. Isabella was waiting for me in the living room, her posture rigid, her eyes red-rimmed but blazing with a strange, defiant energy. She launched into a speech about how worried she was about me, how my lack of visible grief was unnatural, a sign of something broken inside. She said she felt like she was married to a stranger, a man who could watch his beloved companion die without shedding a single tear. Then she told me she had done something to help me. She gestured toward my study. I needed to see you feel something, Daniel. I needed to know there's a real person in there. And then, with a chilling calmness, she said, I destroyed your hard drive, the one with all your novel stuff. I reformatted it. For a moment, the words didn't compute. Then the meaning crashed over me. 5 years. 5 years of my life, of obsession, of love and labor, the research, the notes, the maps, the voice memos, the countless iterations. The world I had built, gone, because she wanted to see me cry. I walked past her, my legs moving on autopilot, into my study. I plugged the drive in. The computer recognized it, but it was empty, a void, a digital wasteland where a universe had once lived. I felt a cold, sharp clarity pierce through the shock. This wasn't just about data. It was about the utter annihilation of something sacred to me, a deliberate act of vandalism against my inner world, designed to provoke and punish. I turned to her. My voice was quiet, eerily steady. You have no idea what you've just done. She looked taken aback, her defiant mask slipping into uncertainty. She started to stammer something about wanting to help me, to free me from my emotional prison. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I went to our bedroom, pulled a suitcase in the closet, and began to pack. She followed me, her panic rising. Daniel, wait. I was just so upset about Smokey. I thought if you could just let it out, we could be close again. Her words were meaningless noise. I told her I couldn't be near her. I took my suitcase, my laptop, and the empty hard drive, got into my car, and drove to a hotel in the city center. The next morning, I called a divorce lawyer. During the consultation, I relayed the facts. The lawyer listened, his expression a mixture of professional detachment and sheer disbelief. I instructed him to begin proceedings. I sent Isabella a single, cold text informing her of my location, my safety, and my legal representation, and that all communication should go through them. That was 10 days ago. Since then, my phone has been flooded with pleas, apologies, and angry texts. Mutual friends have called, acting as intermediaries, telling me how remorseful she is, how it was a moment of insanity driven by grief. Yesterday, my brother brought me a long, handwritten letter from her. In it, she professed a profound regret. She wrote that her actions came from a place of deep-seated insecurity and a catastrophic misinterpretation of my grief. She felt that if I didn't mourn Smokey in a way she recognized, it meant I was incapable of deep love for him or for her. Destroy my work was a twisted, desperate attempt to force an emotional breakthrough, to shatter the walls she perceived around me. She revealed she had already started seeing a therapist. She begged me to stop the divorce and consider marriage counseling, swearing she would do anything to fix what she had broken. The betrayal is a physical ache. The loss of my work is a profound grief in itself. But the calculated cruelty of her action, the mindset that could rationalize causing such immense pain to elicit a specific emotional performance, is what haunts me. My lawyer mentioned this could be viewed as malicious destruction of property, though the intangible value is hard to quantify. But she is my wife. We shared a decade of our lives. Before this, the idea of her capable of such a thing would have been laughable. Is it possible that grief and fear can warp a person so completely? Her letter sounds genuine, and she is in therapy. So, I find myself asking an impossible question. Am I a fool for even considering pausing the divorce to attempt counseling? Or is this violation so fundamental that walking away is the only sane choice? I want to thank everyone who read my initial post and shared their thoughts. The spectrum of responses, from immediate, unequivocal support for divorce to cautious consideration of reconciliation, has given me a lot to process. I need to clarify a few points that many raised. First, the novel and the lost data. This wasn't a hobby. It was a significant part of my identity. While unpublished, it represented a massive intellectual and creative investment. The 5 years of work on the drive included not just the manuscript drafts, but the entire scaffolding of the project, archival image files, historical price lists for authenticity, architectural sketches of fictional buildings, and a database of character interactions. The manuscript itself was backed up, but the creative ecosystem was not. The loss is incalculable on a personal level. Data recovery specialists had confirmed the drive was securely wiped. Recovery is not feasible. Second, my emotional nature. I am not unfeeling. Smokey's death shattered me. My way of honoring him was to ensure his end was peaceful and to carry his memory with me, not to perform my sorrow for an audience. Isabella has known my reserved nature for a decade. It was never an issue before, but it seems her own grief magnified it into a monstrous absence. Third, prior red flags. There were none of this magnitude. We had our disagreements, moments where she needed more verbal reassurance than I naturally gave, but never a hint of sabotage, manipulation, or destructive intent. This act came from a place I never knew existed in her, which is why it was so disorienting. After reading the comments and sitting with my anger and grief, I made a decision. The divorce papers had already been filed and served. I decided that before I made the final, irrevocable step, I would meet with Isabella face to face. I needed to see her, to look in her eyes and gauge her sincerity for myself. I made it clear this was not a step toward reconciliation, but a necessary conversation for my own closure. We met at a neutral cafe. She was pale and looked like she hadn't slept. She didn't offer excuses. She reiterated what was in her letter, explaining that her grief over Smokey, combined with her perception of my emotional unavailability, created a perfect storm of fear and insecurity. She described feeling emotionally abandoned and, in a moment of profound distortion, believed that causing me a different, more visible pain would somehow jolt me back to her, proving I could feel. She showed me her therapist's appointment card for the following week. She cried, apologized genuinely, and begged for a chance to try counseling, fully acknowledging she might have destroyed any possibility of trust. I listened, then I laid out my terms. I told her the trust was atomized. I explained that even considering counseling was a massive leap for me, and it came with non-negotiable conditions. The divorce proceedings would remain active, merely paused. I would not be returning home. My conditions were, she must continue individual therapy without interruption. We would select a marriage counselor together, with a focus on betrayal and communication, and I would have final veto power. There would be no expectation of forgiveness or a quick fix. This was a long-term probe with a high likelihood of failure. I needed to see sustained, demonstrable change, not just words. Any pressure from her would result in me immediately moving to finalize the divorce. I also told her that my novel project was, for now, dead to me. The association was too painful. She agreed to every term immediately, with a humility I had never seen in her before. She seemed to understand the magnitude of her actions and the fragility of this chance. So, that is where we stand. I have instructed my lawyer to put the divorce on hold. We are in the process of vetting marriage counselors. It feels like I'm choosing to walk a tightrope over an abyss. Part of me is convinced this is a catastrophic error in judgment. But another part, the part that remembers a woman I loved for 10 years, feels a duty to explore if a shred of that person remains. I am not optimistic, but I am, for now, willing to look. It has been 7 months since D-Day. The journey since my last update has been the most grueling of my life, a relentless excavation of pain, motive, and broken foundations. Carmela and I committed to the process with a grim determination. We found a marriage counselor specializing in trauma and relational repair. The sessions were brutal. There were no easy answers, only difficult truths dragged into the light. Isabella's individual therapy unearthed deep-seated issues from her childhood, a fear of emotional abandonment, and a pattern of equating emotional expressiveness with love. Her act of destroying my hard drive was, in therapeutic terms, a protest behavior, a destructive and desperate attempt to gain reassurance and connection when she felt terrifyingly alone, especially in the wake of losing Smokey and misinterpreting my stoicism as indifference. Our counselor was meticulous in framing this as an explanation, never an excuse. The responsibility for her choice remained entirely her own. For my part, I was forced to examine my own role in our dynamic. While my internal processing is valid, I gained insight into how my quiet, self-contained nature could be perceived as a wall by a partner who needed more verbal and visible emotional connection. I learned that my tendency to retreat into my work during times of stress, while a coping mechanism for me, could feel like abandonment to her. This was not to blame me for her actions, but to understand the dysfunctional dance we had been in for years. In terms of tangible change, Isabella has been unwavering. She has not missed a single therapy session. She has engaged with the painful work, often taking insights from her individual sessions back to our joint counseling to discuss. She wrote me a new letter. This one focused not on apology, but on a clear-eyed, detailed account of the harm she caused. She listed the violation of trust, the disrespect for my passion, the profound selfishness of her act, and the terror it must have instilled in me. It was a harrowing document to read, but it carried a weight of true accountability that her initial apologies lacked. As for the novel, the wound remained fresh for a long time. I couldn't write. The thought of rebuilding that world from ashes felt like a betrayal of the loss itself. Our living arrangement evolved slowly. I stayed in my apartment for the first 4 months. After consistent progress and demonstrable change, I agreed to move back into our house, but into the separate guest room. The divorce papers remained on file with the court, a constant reminder of the precipice we were walking along. There was no physical intimacy for months. We had to rebuild emotional intimacy brick by painful brick. We started with scheduled, non-negotiable time together. Walks, cooking meals, talking without the pressure of fixing anything. About 5 months into this new arrangement, the ice began to crack. Laughter returned, tentative and quiet at first. The guest room door was left open more often. We started sharing a bed again about 3 months ago. First just sleeping, then slowly rediscovering each other. It was strange and familiar all at once. The divorce proceedings were officially withdrawn 2 months ago. It was not a decision we made lightly. It came after a long, quiet conversation one evening, where we both acknowledged a new relationship we were building was fundamentally different from the one we had before. It was more honest, more communicative, and built on a hard-won understanding of each other's deepest vulnerabilities. My lawyer filed the dismissal paperwork without comment, though I suspect he was as surprised as anyone that we had navigated our way back from the brink. And the novel? I thought it was gone forever. But then, about a month ago, Isabella did something that nearly brought me to tears. Not a grief, but a profound, complex emotion I can't even name. She had been quietly going through old boxes and found a stack of my earliest pre-digital notes for the book, character sketches and plot ideas scribbled in margins of notebooks from years ago. She hadn't tried to rewrite my story. Instead, she had carefully, painstakingly typed them all up. She organized them into a simple document, added a table of contents, and saved it on a brand new high-quality hard drive. She gave it to me and said, "I know I can't give you back what I took, but I wanted to give you back the beginning. If you ever want to start again, no pressure. I just want to support the part of you that creates." I haven't started writing again yet, but for the first time since she destroyed that drive, the idea doesn't feel like a monument to my pain. It feels like a possibility. This will be my final update. Our life now is not a fairy tale. We bear scars, but we are happy. We are closer and more connected than we have ever been, precisely because we have seen the very worst in each other and chosen to build something new from the wreckage. For those who believe the breach was too great, I understand. And for a long time, I agreed with you. But for us, through relentless work, genuine transformation, and a fragile, stubborn seed of love that never fully died, we found our way home.